I had been told the temple was a single building. That was a road man's mistake. The temple was a country. I had walked up from the lower city with Andrew that morning. Andrew had taken pity on the fact that I had never seen Passover in Jerusalem and was about to embarrass him by asking the wrong questions of the wrong people. "Stay close," he had said, and I had stayed close, and Jerusalem had eaten us anyway. Pilgrims pressed in from the eastern roads, Galileans, Idumeans, Greeks who were learning, North Africans whose Hebrew was older than mine. The animals smelled before the people did. Sheep dung, goat, pigeon. The smell of blood washed off stone with cold water and not quite finished leaving. The smell was the work. A working temple smelled like work. We came up through the Hulda gates. I will not pretend I remember the gates well. I remember the press of bodies in the tunnel under them, the way the cool of the stone hit my back when I had not realized I was sweating, the way Andrew's hand came back and caught my wrist for a count of 3 breaths because a man behind me was carrying a basket of doves, and the doves were terrified, and Andrew did not want a terrified bird to remember its only available exit was the back of my head. We emerged into light. A great court spread out. I had never seen so much carved stone in one place that was not a wall. The columns were taller than any cedar I had grown up calling tall. The court was bigger than 3 of my home villages laid end to end. People moved through it the way water moves through a wide place, faster at the edges, slow and circling in the middle with eddies where men had set up tables. "Here," Andrew said, "is where it gets noisy." It was already noisy. What he meant was, here is where the noise becomes argument. The tables. They were arranged in a long, curving line under the southern colonnade. Men sat behind them with stacks of coins arranged by size, by metal, by inscription. Their hands moved fast, not the fast of a thief, the fast of a man who has done this for so many years. He has lost the ability to do it slowly. Pilgrims came up with what they had: Tyrian shekels, Roman denarii, Greek drachma, copper from a half-dozen towns. The men behind the tables looked at the coin, looked at the pilgrim, named a rate, and either took or refused. The rate was the work. Coins with the emperor's face on them could not enter the inner temple treasury. That was the rule. So pilgrims who had walked 17 days to bring an offering had to exchange their walking money for clean money before they could give the clean money to God. The exchanger took a fee. The fee was small if you knew Aramaic and looked confident. The fee was less small if you did not. The fee was largest if you were elderly, alone, female, foreign, or had the look of someone who had been told all their life that arguing with a man behind a table was a sin. I noted 3 exchanges before I had finished noting the colonnade. A young couple from the Galilee handed over a Roman quarter denarius. The man behind the table named a number. The young wife's hand went to her husband's sleeve. She had expected a different number. They walked away, and she did not cry until they had turned the corner. A widow in dark cloth held out 3 small coppers. The man behind the table told her she had brought the wrong metal. She tried again, more slowly. He waved his hand the way you wave a hand at a fly. A man from somewhere east handed over a coin I had never seen. The man behind the table held it to the light, smiled the smile of a man who has just been given a gift he is going to claim he earned, and counted out the equivalent in Tyrian. The transaction had a hole in it the size of a man's hand, and only the man behind the table could see it. I had grown up watching markets. This was a market. What it was not that I could see was a place where a man stood between you and what you were trying to give to God. I did not yet have the language for what was wrong with that. I had the road's language for it, which was somebody is taking a cut between the giver and the gift, and that cut is bigger than the gift. In the road's language, that was theft. The road did not let you steal from a man going to bury his father. The road did not let you skim from a coin meant for a temple. The road had its own rules, and the rules were terrible, and even the road had a line. "Andrew," I said. "Don't," he said. "Don't what? Whatever you are about to say." I had not said anything. Your face had. I closed my face. Andrew kept walking. I kept walking. We passed under another colonnade, and the noise changed. We came out into the court where the animals were sold. Lambs in pens, goats. Cattle for the wealthier offerings. Doves stacked in cages of woven reed, 4 cages deep, the bottom cage covered with the droppings of the upper 3, the doves in the bottom cage moving less. I had seen the lambs of my own village brought to the slaughter. I had helped my uncle bind a goat for a feast when I was 11. None of that bothered me. What bothered me was the price. A dove in our village had cost a quarter of a denarius, and you could buy it from your cousin. A dove here in this court was being sold for the equivalent of half a day's labor for a man who already worked 12 hours a day. The widow with 3 coppers could not have bought a dove if she had stood in line all day. The second thing I saw, the poor could not afford to be obedient. The third thing I saw was a man with a whip of cords. He was not a priest. He was not a Roman. He was not a guard. He was a man about my height, brown from sun, with the kind of forearms a man gets from working wood for 20 years. He was standing very still by one of the tables, and his stillness was the stillness of a man who has decided. Andrew saw him at the same moment I did. Andrew said, "Oh," Andrew's word for events that were about to require more from him than he had wanted to give today. The man with the cords moved. He did not run. He did not shout first. He walked between the tables the way a man walks between the rows of his own field after a wind has knocked the stalks crooked. And at the first table he came to, he set his hands under the table edge and lifted. And the table came up, and the coins came up with it, and the man behind the table came up out of his chair. And then the table came down on its side, and the coins went everywhere, and they went everywhere across the stone. Into the gutters that carried away the animal blood, into the sandals of pilgrims, into the cracks between the flagstones where they would be picked out for the next 40 years by children whose families could not afford to leave a coin in a crack. The man behind the table shouted. The man with the cords had already moved to the next table. A coin rolled past my foot and I did not pick it up. That was the strange thing. I, who had picked coins out of dust along every road I had ever walked, did not bend down. I do not know why. The coin was Roman, the size of a thumbnail, perfectly good silver, and I let it lie. Andrew's hand was on my arm. The cords came down on the second table. The second man behind the second table was younger and braver and tried to hold his stack, and the cords flicked once near his fingers, not on them, near them, and his fingers came back fast and his stack went over with the rest. Doves. The cords went past the dove cages and the man's hand reached for the bindings and his fingers, those forearms, those carpenter's fingers, undid 4 knots in the time another man would have taken to undo one, and the doves boiled up out of the cages and into the colonnade air and made for the open sky over the mount. And most of them got there, because doves know the open sky better than they know anything else, and they will not refuse it twice. A great cry went up. Not from one man, from the whole court. The cry of a market suddenly aware that it has been a market. The man with the cords did not stop. He went down the line of tables. Some of them he overturned. Some he did not have to. The man behind the table had already pulled back, hands up, coins gathered in haste against the chest. Some of the men behind the tables shouted. Some did not. 2 of them I saw look at each other in a way that said, "We have been waiting for this for years, and now that it is here, we are not sure we wanted it." He stopped at the 7th table. He was breathing hard, but only with the breath of a man who has done physical work, not with the breath of a man losing control of himself. He stood with the cords in his hand and looked across the court, and the court looked back at him, and a hush came down that was different from silence. It was the hush of 1,000 people who had each known, privately, separately in their own road language, that this place was a market, and had each thought they were the only one who knew it, and had each been wrong. He spoke. His voice was not loud the way I had thought he would have to be. It was the loud of a man whose silence had already done most of the work. He said something I did not catch all of because my Greek was poor and my Hebrew was country, and the Aramaic he used had a Galilean curl in it that I had heard before but could not place. The pieces I caught, my father's house, den of thieves, den of robbers. The line was somebody else's line. He was quoting. Even I, who could not name the prophet, could hear the cadence of a quoted line. Then he said something else. Smaller. To the men behind the tables themselves, not to the crowd. I did not catch it. But the closest exchanger, the one whose table had come down first, wept. Not loudly. The way a grown man weeps when he has been told the thing he has been telling himself for 10 years not to think. The man with the cords lowered the cords. He looked across the court. Then his eyes found me. I had been near the colonnade, half behind a column. I had not made myself visible. He saw me anyway. It was not the surprise a man shows for a face he has not seen before. It was the recognition of a thing already known by another name. He saw me here. I did not nod. I did not look away. A breath passed. He did not nod either. The corner of his mouth moved the width of one finger, not a smile. Then he looked past me. A temple guard came across the court at a trot. Andrew's hand tightened on my arm. "Now," he said, "we go." We went. We did not run. Running would have made us a story. We walked the way a man walks who has remembered an appointment, the way Andrew walked everywhere with the quiet adamantine momentum of a fisherman who has decided which water he is in for the day. We crossed the lower court. We went down under the Hulda gates again, the doves still circling somewhere overhead, the cry of the market still rising behind us. On the steps outside, in the white light, Andrew let go of my arm. "That," he said, "was him." "Who?" "The teacher, the one your brother follows. The one my brother follows. He overturned the tables. Yes. In the temple. Yes. At Passover. Yes. They will kill him for that." Andrew looked at me for a long time. He looked at me the way a fisherman looks at a horizon. He had already weighed the wind. He had already counted his nets. He was simply looking at me to see whether I had counted also. "Yes," he said. We did not speak again until we were 3 streets down, past the cook fires, past the shouting boys with the broken pitcher who had been arguing about whose fault it was for half an hour. Then Andrew stopped beside a wall in the shade and put his back against it and looked at his hands. "Dagon, yes. Did you see the widow? With the 3 coppers. With the 3 coppers. I saw her." He saw her. "How do you know?" Andrew did not answer for a moment. Then he said, "Because I have walked behind him for 2 years. He always sees the widow. He never sees anything else first." He looked at me. "You have to decide today, then, whether you came to Jerusalem to count coins on the dust, or whether you came to see what he sees." I leaned against the wall beside him. The shadow was good. I had walked 17 days for Passover too. I had brought myself, which by my own honest reckoning was a thin offering for a country-sized building. I had seen the widow. I had let a coin lie on the stone. A roadman does not let a Roman coin lie on the stone unless something has happened to him. "I do not know what I came for," I said. "That is a good answer." "Is it?" "It is a true answer, better than most." We stood in the shade a while. The sound of the upper city was still cracking with the news. By tomorrow morning, the man would have driven out 100 merchants. By the next Sabbath, he would have used a sword. The story was already changing. I had been there. A coin had rolled past my foot. I had not picked it up. Andrew pushed off the wall. "Come," he said. "There is bread at a